Hello everyone, welcome to Broadview. My name is Joseph. This is an incident that I know you all have heard about. The only way you miss this is if you were completely disconnected from all sources of media at the time. It's because this was the hottest story in 2014. So in 2014, a Boeing 777 plane that took off from Kuala Lumpur suddenly lost contact with the ground after flying for 39 minutes. The plane disappeared into the vast sea along with 239 people on board. After the incident, 27 countries and regions around the world launched a joint search and rescue operation, mobilizing more than 30 aircraft and helicopters and 60 warships to help with the search. But ultimately, nothing was found. This is the most famous plane disappearance in recent aviation history, the Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. 8 years have passed since the disappearance, but a recent incident has brought the mystery of the accident back into the public eye. On December 1st, 2021, Richard Godfrey, a well-known British aerospace engineer, announced to the media that after more than 7 years of consistent efforts, he'd finally found the location of MH370. He accomplished this with weak signal propagation technology. His claims instantly attracted the attention of media from around the world and became one of the internet's most searched topics. So where exactly is MH370, and how did he find it? Well, let's start from the beginning to catch you up. In the early morning of March 8, 2014, an American Boeing 777 plane bound for Beijing took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia right on time. The entire flight time was expected to last 5 hours and 34 minutes. There were 227 passengers on board with 12 crew members. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah was 53 years old and had an impressive 18,365 hours of flying experience. The co-pilot Farik Abdul Hamid was 27 years old and also had extensive experience. The plane flew normally for 37 minutes, at which point Captain Zahari communicated with the air traffic control in Kuala Lumpur one final time. The conversation was recorded by the control tower in Kuala Lumpur.
370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysian 370.
However, just 2 minutes later, MH370 signal disappeared from the radars of air traffic control in Kuala Lumpur and Ho Chi Minh City at the same time. Officials then used military radar to track the trail of MH370. Military radar found that MH370 first made a turn to the right, then suddenly veered to the left, performing a large turn of more than 300 degrees, and then flew southwest. At one point, the aircraft quickly pulled up to a height of 58,000 feet, far exceeding the flight altitude limit of about 43,000 feet for this type of passenger aircraft. Then it quickly dropped to 4,800 feet, flew over the Malay Peninsula, went northwest, and crossed the island of Perak, where it disappeared from Malaysian military radar. The Kuala Lumpur Air Rescue Coordination Center launched a search and rescue operation within a few hours of the disappearance of MH370. The initial scope of the search and rescue effort was focused around the area where the plane disappeared, near the Gulf of Thailand and the South China Sea. But no trace of MH370 was found there. In the next few days, the range of the search area was further expanded to the Strait of Malacca, the Andaman Sea, and the Bay of Bengal. Now, at this time, many countries sent air search troops for search and rescue efforts, but MH370 was still nowhere to be found. When MH370 disappeared, it had enough fuel to fly for 6 hours. This means that there was a number of ways it could have flown over an endless expanse of sea. Searching through such a large area aimlessly would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. But the search and rescue work was on a time crunch because the plane's black box can usually only last for 30 days. If this crucial window of 30 days is missed, it means that it would be very difficult to find the black box again. So the search and rescue team reanalyzed the possible whereabouts of the aircraft through a satellite communication system to carry out a more precise search. The aircraft communicated with the satellite once every 1 hour. In the final moments of MH370, the satellite and the plane reached a total of 7 handshakes, according to communication records. By calculating the fuel on the plane, you can further calculate the arc area where the plane crashed, which turned out to be an arc area in the southern Indian Ocean. The Joint Search and Rescue Team, composed of various countries, conducted extensive air and surface searches near the southern Indian Ocean. But still, they had no luck finding MH370 crashing into the sea. On January 29, 2015, 10 months after MH370 was declared missing, the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia officially confirmed that the flight had crashed. It also declared that 239 people on board were now assumed dead rather than missing. On July 29, 2015, 16 months after the plane went missing, an unexpected clue emerged. A piece of plane wreckage was discovered on the French island of Réunion. Later, experts from the Aviation Technology Center carefully examined the serial number and markings on the wing, and they finally determined that the wreckage of the wing belonged to MH370. Officials then restarted their search efforts. Unfortunately, although many pieces of aircraft wreckage were found, MH370 itself was still not found. On January 10, 2018, the American private ocean Infinity Exploration Company worked with the Malaysian government to conduct another 90-day seafloor search. This collaboration adopted the no cure, no pay model. Ocean Infinity sent 8 underwater drones which can dive to a depth of 5,000 meters and have a battery life of up to 60 hours. Each underwater drone can scan an area of 1,200 square kilometers per day. These machines are perfect for underwater searches. The company was confident it would find MH370. But I think they underestimated the vastness of the sea, and after months of searching, they still found nothing. On November 30th, 2021, British aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey announced in a report that he had discovered the crash site of Malaysian Airlines MH370. This was after using amateur radio technology called the Weak Signal Propagation Reporter, combined with other data from modeling and analysis. The location he pinpointed is just 1,933 kilometers west of Perth, Australia, at the bottom of the southern Indian Ocean, 4,000 meters below sea level. The location was not within the scope of the original search conducted by the Australian Transport Safety Bureau in 2015. It was in the northern part of the 120,000 square kilometer search area that was expanded in 2016. Now get this, the previous search by the American Ocean Infinity Company was only 28 kilometers away from this location. So how exactly did Richard find the location of MH370? He said that since the flight disappeared in 2014, he'd been thinking about how to find it. By chance, he learned that there are a large number of radio amateurs around the world who communicate by radio every day. And when they communicate, they form a weak signal network that's invisible to the naked eye. When a plane flies over these networks, it'll cause interference. So the whereabouts of MH370 can be inferred just by tracking where there had been radio signal interference. What excited Richard was that when he had collected and processed a large amount of radio data, he actually saw an interference signal that was exactly the same as the route map of Malaysian flight estimated by the satellite. The only difference was that the satellite's handshake signal gave a location update once an hour, while Richard's wireless signal could do so every 2 minutes. In other words, Richard's route map could more accurately locate the route of MH370. According to Richard's map, the original search range of 20,000 square kilometers could be reduced to 300 square kilometers. Richard believes that the reason why the plane could not be found before was because the search range was too large. Many areas could only be searched once, making it easy to miss the plane. Richard even confidently told the media,
"It'll only take one more search and we will find it."
At that time, the host was quite surprised by Richard's confidence, so he asked, "How did you determine that the jamming signal must be MH370 and not some other aircraft or ships?" Richard replied,
"It's very easy because out in the middle of the Indian Ocean, there was just one other aircraft in several hours."
Since the two planes were an hour apart after satellite comparison, it's easy to determine that this was the route map of MH370. It's been 8 years since MH370 went missing. So many speculations about what happened were being considered. Today, we'll talk about some mainstream theories and some of my own speculations as well. After the MH370 incident, the Malaysian Special Investigation Team once suspected that the captain, Zahari, was the sole suspect. This was because after the plane lost contact, it veered more than 300 degrees, and according to Richard's route map, when MH370 came to the west side of Sumatra, the plane actually began to hover and entered the waiting mode for up to 22 minutes. These series of operations completely exceed the functions of autopilot, indicating that a very experienced person was personally flying the aircraft at that time. Captain Michael believed that the reason why MH370 circled near the Sumatra airport was because the people operating the plane were negotiating, and once the negotiations were successful, the plane would be ready to land. So if the plane was really being held hostage, who could be the hijacker? At present, most people think it is Captain Zahari, and the reason why he hijacked the plane was because the political figure he supported, Anwar Ibrahim, was arrested. It was possible that Zahari was trying to threaten the Malaysian government to release the man. The FBI later investigated Zahari. The police found that in a flight simulation game in Zahari's house, they found a route that was very similar to the final route of MH370. This was very suspicious, but in the end, officials argued that this was just one of Zahari's thousands of simulated circuits and couldn't be used as evidence as a crime. Ultimately, the investigation didn't find any signs that the captain wanted to hijack the plane and commit suicide. The investigation department also checked all the passengers on the plane and found that 2 passengers had boarded the plane with fake passports. Therefore, many people suspected that the plane was hijacked by them. In this instance, the plane's erratic flight was due to a remote control program that was installed into its system to allow someone else to remotely control the aircraft. However, a subsequent investigation found that the 2 passengers who boarded the plane with false passports were Iranian nationals, and they were only seeking asylum. Turns out they weren't terrorists at all. Another point here is that although many aircraft allow for remote control, the Boeing 777 is a civil aircraft model and doesn't support remote control, so there's no such possibility of controlling the plane remotely. According to the investigation of the cargo carried on the plane, it was found that there was a large number of lithium batteries on board. There's a theory that the large number of lithium batteries caused a fire, which caused the communication device on the plane to fail. After the fire, Captain Zahari made a 300-degree turn in order to seek an emergency landing site, preparing to fly back to the Malay Peninsula. This is because the area is covered with forestry and may have a suitable emergency landing site. This might explain why the radar showed that the plane was flying at a low altitude on the Malay Peninsula. But Zahari didn't find any good place for a forced landing. At this time, the fire on the plane might have gotten even bigger. The captain had to continue to fly northwest to seek an emergency landing at sea. The plane then crashed on the west side of Sumatra. In the more than 20 minutes where the plane circled in place, it may have been looking for a suitable emergency landing site. But unfortunately, it ultimately couldn't. This guess is quite reasonable, but some people may argue that if it is true that the plane was on fire, it would have been just as easy to fly back to the nearby Kuala Lumpur airport, or fly northwest to the nearest airport in Thailand, or continue to fly in the original direction to the airport in Ho Chi Minh. None of these destinations were too far from where the plane was. As a captain with rich experience, it's impossible for Zahari not to have known this. But I also think it's reasonable Captain Zahari would still choose to fly to the forested Malay Peninsula, even though he knew this. There are 2 possibilities here. First, Captain Zahari was very familiar with the Malay Peninsula since he was born in Penang. He knew that there were high mountains and large swaths of forest there, and that he could possibly find a more suitable place for a forced landing there. If a forced landing is required, usually the person's first reaction is to find a place where they are familiar with. The second point, flying at a low altitude on the Malay Peninsula could expose his flight direction, providing clues for the search and rescue team so that the rescue would be quick. Maybe the fire on board was so big at that time that it couldn't be controlled. Even if it flew to an airport, it may have caused casualties on the ground, especially when all communication tools on board were possibly lost. The ground couldn't be prepared for an emergency rescue, and the plane might even encounter high-rise buildings if it had attempted to get to an airport. Explosions and other such dangers would cause even more casualties, so the captain had no choice but to fly to sea after failing to find a suitable emergency landing area in the Malay Peninsula. They couldn't wait for a rescue effort, so the last resort was to make a forced landing at sea, where there might be a last chance for survival. But if the plane was really on fire, people who witnessed the plane flying at a low altitude on the Malay Peninsula should have seen the fire or smoke coming from the plane, right? But no one actually saw any of this, so the fire on board should have only spread inside and not gotten out of control. However, when flying to Penang Island, the smoke in the cockpit was possibly getting thicker and thicker. Captain Zahari might have felt that he was about to suffocate or lose consciousness, so he set the plane to auto cruise when he was awake and headed toward the southern Indian Ocean. Judging from the data retrieved from Inmarsat, MH370 flew in a straight line afterwards, and the altitude remained constant. This flight pattern is very consistent with automatic cruise flight, which means this theory is very plausible. But in any case, speculation is only speculation, and Richard's report is undoubtedly the best consolation for everyone. At present, many experts have recognized and acknowledged this report. Ocean Infinity has also stated that as long as the Malaysian government authorizes it, they will immediately spend 20 to 30 million US dollars to try and find MH370 again. So we're looking forward to 2022 bringing us good news, and that the truth about the disappearance of the Malaysia Airlines flight can be revealed as soon as possible. What do you think caused the crash of MH370? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.